Hello and welcome to Bring the Ring, a new way to handbell. My name is Brenda Austin, and it is my sincere hope that through connecting with us today, you will be inspired to use handbells to make a difference, to add value to our world. Let's get out there and bring the ring.
Hello and welcome to Bring the Ring. My name is Brenda Austin and I'm the editor for Hope Publishing, and we are looking to reach out and connect with composers and other handbell people to see how we can use handbells to impact our world, to make a difference. And today we're going to talk to Sandra Eithun. Sandra Eithun has been a beloved handbell composer for years. She has over 300 pieces for handbells in publication, as well as several sacred keyboard books and teaching collections for the incorporation of handbells in an educational setting. She lives in Wisconsin, where she has been serving as the Director of Music Ministry at First Congregational United Church of Christ since 1992. At the church, Sandra is the director of handbell choirs, as well as serving as the choral accompanist and the organist keyboardist for services. She is also the director of the handbell program at the Holy Family Conservatory. Let's welcome Sandra Eithun. Thank you for being here. How are you?
I am well. How are you, Brenda?
Well, we're doing all right. We have a beautiful snow over everything today, so
We gave it to you. We had it yesterday.
it does make it look pretty, so I'm okay.
You're welcome.
Thank you. So tell me what you are doing now. Are you able to work with any of your groups, or what's going on in Wisconsin?
Well, we're riding the COVID wave like everyone else, right? And trying to adapt and trying to just make sure we're doing something. So at my church, where we customarily have an adult group of handbells and a youth group, we are trying to do so many of the 8-bell quartet pieces that you see out in social media right now. And so I get 4 ringers on a schedule. We do a team per month, and they are masked. They are social distanced in our sanctuary. I'm on the keyboard doing the accompaniments, and we have 1 rehearsal because the requirements for our church, the guidelines are that we have limited rehearsal time. So there are 4 ringers plus myself. So we've developed teams of ringers from the pool of our larger groups, and then once a month we've been doing quartets with keyboard. Social sanctuary. We started out in our parking lot when the weather permitted, but in Wisconsin right now, we really don't want to be out in the parking lot. So we could be in parkas, but we're in the sanctuary again.
Yes, I'm kind of in the same situation where there's no more outdoor anything right now.
Right. I will look forward to that again in the warmer months for sure.
Well, good for you. I mean, you're figuring something out, and you're still able to provide music to your congregation and keep your ringers interested. Good for you. Good for you. Well, I wanted to talk to you today about your piece, Were You There? I know that when we were first talking about you writing it, we're deciding we wanted it to be a lower level, but did we want it to be 2 to 3 octaves or 3 to 5 octaves? And a lot of the times when we think, oh, lower level, we need to make it 2 to 3 octaves. And I know that you had some thoughts on that. So share that with us.
Because I had so many years at my church with a youth group, and we did own 5 octaves, I was hard pressed to find music that would bring in either the lower bass bells or the Shelleys, and you don't want an overabundance of that with beginner ringers, and you have to take into consideration the physical stature of a junior high or high school student when it comes to bass bells. Can they lift those, and so forth. So I started out maybe 10 or 15 years ago doing some 3 to 5 octave level 1 pieces, and the feedback I got was amazing. It was like, thank you so much, because we do own 5 octaves. We would like to pull in more people, or it doesn't necessarily have to mean children. It can be beginning adults who really aren't there yet with maybe doing fancy syncopations or subdivisions, but just need something that sounds meaty and good for a 5 octave group of beginners. So when you and I discussed it, I guess I just keep in mind that I don't want the bass bell patterns moving too quickly for beginners, that they have time, and I do not want the Shelleys to come up and bite someone on the nose. They need a little bit of preparation time to pull in, some shellies, or a little prep time to pick up or set down a chime or a mallet and so forth. So I think that's what I tried to do in Were You There, to still create a piece that felt substantial for beginning groups, but didn't overwhelm them, make them come back next week to the rehearsal, right?
Right. You don't want to scare them off.
Right. We don't want them in the corner sucking their thumb after the first run through. We want them to come back. Yeah.
Exactly. So what compositional elements went into this piece? I think a lot of times when we think about a level one, we're like, oh, it's just a level one. But I think often you have to put even more thought into it than you do an upper level piece.
Sure. And I mean, this as well. You have such beautiful pieces. You have to use all of the physical properties of the bell sometimes. It doesn't cost us any more with our skill level to utilize LV, or to do an echo, perhaps pull in a new technique that isn't necessarily requiring the ringer to do gymnastics right away with figuring out what they need to be picking up. But I think LVs and shakes can be effective for beginner ringers because there's nothing they have to do extra. You know what I mean? So I tried to incorporate a little bit of impressionistic sound into this one with the LVs, just to create some more interest.
That's a great word for it. I hadn't put my thumb on it yet, but yeah, it does have a little bit of an impressionistic sound to it.
Mm-hmm.
We should probably mention that this piece is COVID friendly for distance ringing. Yay! So you can easily do it in distancing. You don't have to worry about shared bells or any of that. So
right.
So what can you tell us about this before we listen?
Well, I do like the use of the LV technique right from the get-go with the treble quarter note bells, and that you'll hear that little theme woven in throughout the piece as some connecting tissue between sections. And I did opt, this is why it has been given level 1+. There is one bell change for the G to G sharp ringer, and there's also where you need to set your bell down perhaps in the trebles and pick up a chime. So I just felt like to make the chimes as a very background accompaniment to the melody that still remains in the bell would just be interesting for the listener, and a good skill to pull in for the beginning ringers to say, you can do this. You can set your bell down, you can pick up a chime, to create a skill and to foster confidence that you can do this. And there are pieces written with you in mind that give you the time, the think time to set that bell down and pick up a chime. So I did incorporate that. I did put in a couple of little stretching of the tempo for effect, where it's just slow for like 2 to 3 measures, sort of just to let the music exhale, just, and then go back into it again. And I it's not extreme, but again, I thought it would be a wonderful teaching tool to start getting into some tempo changes and working with the words retard a tempo and things like that we commonly use.
Let's take a listen.
Sure.
Well, thank you. That was awesome.
Awesome. Thank you.
I'm just curious, how did you start composing? What got you going composing?
Um, Way back, I think when I was in junior high, maybe a little younger, one of my piano teachers just had us write a little piano song and bring it to piano lessons. And it was something I never thought, I can still remember what I called it. It was called the glider. I have no idea where it is. It was on notation paper. But then I thought, well, that was kind of fun. And I didn't think about it for a while. And then when I went to college, I started writing things for flute and keyboard. And I really enjoyed the composition class that we had where we were working on a lot of reharmonizations of existing classical pieces and hymn tunes and things like that. But then one of my friends who got married in college said to me in class, "Can we have that piece for our wedding? Could we please use that flute and piano piece?" And I thought, wow, somebody actually wants this. This is kind of cool. And I don't know if I should confess this, but I constantly just hear music in my head, and that's probably true for you too. I mean, we as writers, you're just hearing things, and I have things scribbled down on notepads in solfege most of the time, and or if you're like me, you're listening to the background music in a TV commercial and you're analyzing the chord structure or listening to what key do people's doorbells ringing and things like that.
Yeah.
We're junkies, I know. But I just but where it really started for me was in the early 90s when I took the job as director of music ministry at my church in New London, Wisconsin. And they had lost their bell director several years prior to a car accident. And when I got there, they pulled their old bell set out and asked me what I could do with this. And I had never picked up a bell. And I took a workshop from Billy Alexander of Strike Point in Duluth. And after that, I thought, I have to do this for the rest of my life. This is the most fun thing I've ever done musically. So, getting to your point, we really didn't have a big budget like most churches for music. And I thought, I'm just going to try my hand at writing a couple little ditties for my group, which I did. And I never put my name on them because I wanted honest feedback. I thought, well, if they see your name, they're going to go, oh, we love it. So I never did that. And it ended up being pretty well received, the feedback I got. And back at that time, we weren't sending PDFs through email. So I thought, well, this will cost me a stamp. I'll put some of these in an envelope and I'll send them off somewhere. And after that, within the first year that I started doing that, I had 18 acceptances for pieces I had written for my group. And,
Wow.
and my children were very little. I have 4 grown children now, but they were all very young, and it was something I could do at home during nap time.
Uh-huh.
So I tried to do that a little bit while I was in the mom years, And so after that, I just kept working more and more, and I just love it. I just love to write. I like to put my ideas down. And
I'm curious, like, how do you start? Do you start with the harmony? Do you start with the melody? Where do you start?
it depends, because sometimes if I have no piece in mind, no, I have no idea what am I going to write today. That doesn't happen too much lately because I have a lot of commissioned work on my plate. But years ago, I would turn to my keyboard here and I would just noodle around, and I thought, oh, that could be a good introduction for something. I have no idea, but I would save all these, or this could be a good interlude in some piece. And I sort of had this grab bag that I would all of a sudden go, that sounds like the beginning of Be Thou My Vision for some reason. However, if someone says to you, we would like a level 3 rendition of Joy to the World, then I tack that different because I already know the tune. And sometimes I'll write the introductions and it'll be for something original I might want to write. I think if you have a good tune, there you go, you've got it. So I try really hard, and I know I'm not always successful, and none of us are. I'm guilty of sometimes we get into a writing cookie cutter hymn music because there's so many renditions of the same hymns out there. But there's always another good arrangement of any hymn tune. I think if there's something will rise to the top again, And so I try to make it different than everything I've heard. Sometimes I'll write a phrase and I'll go, that sounds like been there, done that, like we've had that already.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and it's hard because we have a lot of good writers in our idiom, and there's a lot of great people doing great things, yourself included. And it's like, well, how do we rise above this? So therein lies one challenge, right? To make it different. And so I try to do that. But a lot of my background is keyboard. So as I'm thinking of a tune in my head, I can sometimes on my hands, my keyboard is right to my left here. So I turn around to my keyboard and I can accompany what I'm hearing in my head. And then I just need to write that accompaniment down, or I'll sing it.
Uh-huh.
Driving down the highway. I was like,
Uh-huh.
oh, that's a good that's a good thing to add to that song. I hope I don't forget by the time I get home.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah. And we keep singing it until you get home, or record it.
Right.
Or
Right. I've been in the bank drive-through writing sticky notes in my car while the lady is doing my transaction, and then I slam the sticky note down on the seat, so when I get home I remember. I've already called into, back in the day when we had answering machines at home, I called my answering machine and I sang something into the answering machine. So when I got home, I would remember what it was.
Yeah. Yeah. Have you ever gotten this great melody in your head and then later realized, oh wait, this is not mine. This is somebody else's.
Or I've done it because I've been writing for 25 years. It was something I did like 20 years ago. And I was like, I think I did this already. And then I look it up and I'm like, you did this already. And I was like, yeah.
Darn it.
I know, right? Till I realized I did it back in 2002. Yeah. Exactly.
Oh, well.
I'm glad to know that's not just me. You made me just feel really good there, Brenda.
So the other piece I want to talk about today was Come Ye Thankful People Come. Talk a little bit about that piece and what went into writing that one.
I think I took the title verbatim when I did the opening. Like, it's a calling to gather the group, right? Gathering of the congregation or whomever, and come ye thankful. So there's some very open chords at the beginning with open fourths and open fifths, with suspended bells with mallets just in the distance, kind of calling together. And that is revisited at the end of the piece to kind of decompress the piece and close it out again. So I took that, and then I also I wove just teeny tiny little pieces of Now Thank We Got All Our God into the piece, just for interest, as some little interlude-ish. Is that in the music dictionary?
Absolutely.
Interlude-ish stuff.
Uh-huh.
I went to school. So that's woven in there. But what I especially like in this piece, and I'll let when the listeners get to around measure 32, I'm looking at it right now. I considered some of the plucks in the bass and the low trebles as sort of like a pizzicato string sound, to sort of envision if you were in an orchestra and the violins or violas were just doing pizzicato strings as an accompaniment, and just to keep it light and breezy to allow the chime melody to flourish over the top of that. And I think when I did finally hear the recording through Hope, I thought that's exactly what I wanted that balance to be like. Not an overpowering big old pluck, but just subtle. And so that's what I was going for with that. And there is, the big broad finish that we have in some of these big Thanksgiving tunes. But I decided then after that to go back, like I said earlier, just to decompress the tune with that sort of open and airy feeling of those open fourths and fifths with suspended bells in the background. And that's a challenge sometimes, right, as you're a director, just to get everybody to land that mallet together on that casting, so it sounds like one sound and not three sounds. So that would probably be the rehearsal challenge for some of that. But it is, what level did we have, Brenda? A 3-. So there are a couple challenges for groups that are, developing ringers, but not, I don't think, insurmountable. And I think a couple rehearsals before Thanksgiving, and hopefully 2021 we'll be gathering for Thanksgiving again, right?
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. I love all the techniques that you use in this one. How do you decide on your techniques? Is it integral to the composition process or does it come later?
No, it's in it because I hear it that way. I hear it as like a plucked string sound, or when I opt for suspended bells with mallets, it's because I am looking for something probably very incidental,
Mhm.
or to sound like it's coming from the distance, or when I do the suspended bells and bass bells, it's to achieve probably a very low dynamic, which every time we try, right, we'll hit that clapper and that bass bell. And number one, it either won't hit or it
Mhm.
hits harder than we want it to. And I
Yeah.
think with that mallet, you have more control
Yep.
to do a softer dynamic. But I guess I try to use shakes sparingly for those big moments. I'm not a shake on every melody notes kind of gal because I feel like sometimes shakes can get a little. Don't get me wrong, there's a lot of scores of shakes it worked in really well, but sometimes I think if they're overdone, it's a little grinding to the audience. So I try to use those a little bit more sparingly. There's some runs in this piece that incorporate more open fourths and fifths to give that airy feeling and to give a gain in the, like it's sort of coming to a climax in the middle of the piece. And I like that feeling of those open chords, especially when you get to LB them and they kind of bleed together, and when it works, when the sounds of all those chords work together well. To say there are times though when the melody is in the battery bells, and so that's always important to pull that out and leave the outer edges to be a little more subtle so that we can hear the pronounced melody in the middle. But yeah, I think landing some of those malleted sections would be one of the challenges, just to make sure we're landing those together.
Well, let's listen. I love this use of the pizzicato sound right there.
Yeah, I
So
was trying to go for something different because I've heard this song so many different ways, and I thought, what can I do? That's what I was. That was what I was going for, just something different.
Nice work.
Makes you want turkey dinner, right?
Yes. Well, do you have any words of wisdom for directors, conductors, maybe with regard to that piece specifically, or just in general?
Um, I think just keep working at your craft and spend time with it and listen to others and look at score booklets and see what's new and what's out there. And the new score booklets have just so much variety and beautiful stuff that I would say keep studying your score booklets, look at those, listen to other groups, go to events if you can swing it. After the pandemic is restrictions are limited or lifted, but go to events and get with other directors and other musicians and find out our idiom isn't exactly out there. When we go to school to become a music teacher, it's not often a choice for your major instrument. We learn things on the fly in handbells, but we have a great network of people in the handbell industry. And there are so many good people that you can use as resources out there, like Brenda Austin. Contact her at Hope Publishing. She'll set you up with the perfect piece for your handbell player.
Well, but that is what I love about handbells is that people are accessible and you can reach out to somebody and they will chat with you and help you and you can figure things out together. That's what I
Right,
love about handbells.
right. And everybody's almost always happy to help and happy to say what worked for them and what didn't work. And if you are a new director, some things won't work, and that's okay. You just put that in that was my experience box, right? And then take note of what is working well.
Mm-hmm.
And your ringers will respond. They will.
I remember a couple of years ago, I actually contacted you about a piece of yours that I was really struggling with my group, that we just weren't locking in together. And I said, hey, do you have any suggestions? And you gave me very specific suggestion and it worked. And I've used that ever since.
I remember that.
I'm just so grateful. And, and so, yeah, I guess that's a lesson to all of us. Like, don't be afraid to reach out
No,
to people. We want to help and we're here.
right. I was so blessed. I went back in around 1999 and 2000 in Mequon, Wisconsin at Concordia University, where John Banke used to always sponsor or have as part of the curriculum Handbell Week. And we got to work with people like Arnold Sherman and Kay Cook and Bill Payne and John Banke and those folks. And it was a wonderful network of people that we're all still friends today, and we still all talk and gather from each other and help where we can. And I love that camaraderie in our industry. It's great.
I agree 100%. So thanks for chatting with us today. And always a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Get your snow shovel out, Brenda. It's coming.
Yeah, it needs to stop now. Enough of a good thing.
Sounds good.
Take
Thanks.
care.
I will. You too.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for joining us today. Brenda Austin is the handbell editor for Hope Publishing, where we are equipping musicians for excellence. Visit hopepublishing.com or call 1-800-323-1049 for all your music needs. For questions about this episode of Bring the Ring, contact Brenda at brenda@hopepublishing.com. Our show notes can be found on our Facebook page or in the comments below.